Welcome and thank you for joining the College of Education's Practicum Field Experience Explore More. It's the overview of practicum and field experience requirements. And this particular presentation is set for our ground traditional as well as our Arizona located teacher candidates. First, let me just start off by thanking you again for joining today's presentation. Each of you have several hours of practicum or field experience embedded throughout your program, and these are really designed in order to provide you with authentic experiences out there in the field. You'll be able to apply what you're learning in your classrooms and expand your knowledge and develop your skills in order to best prepare you for your future as an educator. So here on the first page, you'll see today's agenda and the topics that we'll be covering. We'll start off by introducing the key support roles we have in place here at the College of Education. We'll also dive into why our programs include the practicum, as well as our expectations of you as a teacher candidate completing those practicum hours out there in the field. Of course, each candidate is required to document where and when they're completing those hours. So we'll discuss that process and show you how you'll document those hours within our document management system. And finally, we'll discuss the resources available to you and whom you can reach out to if you do have any additional questions. Again, my name is Julianne Brent, and I'm the Director of Clinical Practice here in the College of Ed. Our clinical practice office really helps to oversee all items related to the time that you're spending in the field, whether that's for practicum or field experience hours, your student teaching, or perhaps if you're in one of our advanced programs, the educational administration internships. So we do work with a variety of other departments here at the university. That includes the field experience team, your field experience counselors, and our teacher placement counselors. So as I'm sure each of you are aware, along with your university counselor and your student services counselor, you are assigned to a field experience counselor. And this particular person is very well versed in the particular region of the United States in which you reside or in which you're completing your program. So he or she can assist you in providing information on specific programmatic requirements, such as your fingerprint clearance, your required certification exams, of course, your practicum field experience requirements, and then any other state certification requirements. So those of you in our initial licensure programs that lead to teacher licensure or certification, you're also going to be assigned to a teacher placement counselor who you will work with to secure that student teaching placement and answer any of those student teaching questions that will occur at the very end of your program. But up until that point, you'll be working closely with your field experience counselor. Now, it's pretty small on the screen here for you today, but we do have a list of our field experience and teacher placement counselors located on the Student Success Center. And if you're not sure who you're assigned to, certainly feel free to look at that resource or just reach out to your student service counselor and they can get you in touch with the right person. Okay, so as we dive into today's presentation, I think it's always great to start out with defining the purpose. So I'm sure that you've heard of practicum, or that term practicum before. Some of you may heard it referred to as field experience. These terms are really used interchangeably. We use both. We usually have it as practicum / field experience. And the reason for that is different states will refer to that time spent out in the field just in different ways. They just use different words. But really, practicum and field experience, it's really one and the same. And it's the time that you're going out into the classrooms, out into the schools, and you're practicing those skills in order to become a better educator while you're here in the program. So just as a, let's say a medical student or a nursing student, they would go into clinicals, into doctor's offices or hospitals. They're practicing their skills, and they're honing their knowledge and those skills by having that time in the field. Same thing with our College of Education students. You're going to have those similar opportunities just in the field of education, so in the K-12 classrooms. So here at GCU, you will have a few earlier classes that don't require fingerprint clearance, but then there are going to be a bulk of classes that you will be required to have fingerprint clearance on file. Of course, we want to ensure that we're putting the appropriate types of candidates into those classrooms, working with those K-12 students. So it is a requirement that you have the appropriate current and valid fingerprint clearance on file prior to going into any class that requires fingerprint clearance or has those practicum hours. So again, there will be a few earlier classes that may have a small number of what we call practicum hours, where you're going to be doing some interviewing, but more typically speaking, any course that has practicum hours, you'll be expected to go out there into the classrooms, work with the students, and those ones are going to require fingerprint clearance. You can always determine which class requires fingerprint clearance versus does not by looking at the course description. Any course that requires fingerprint clearance will say it there at the end of the course description. And if you're not sure of what fingerprint clearance is required for your particular state, you'll want to work with your field experience counselor. They can certainly point you in the right direction. However, for anyone here in Arizona or that plans to certify in Arizona, you will be required to obtain an Arizona IVP, which stands for Identity Verified Prints, fingerprint clearance card. So once you complete that process, they will actually send you a card in the mail. It's a white card with black writing. It kind of looks like a credit card. You will need to take a front and back copy of that card and send that to your field experience counselor in order to have on file. One thing you want to keep in mind regarding the fingerprint clearance is that you'll need to have that current one on file in order to progress into any practicum or, of course, student teaching if you have that in your program. So keep that in mind. Those Arizona IVP cards are valid for 6 years. So you should be able to finish your program without having to renew that. However, it is something that you'll have to renew as you move on to seek certification. Now, if you're outside of Arizona and you happen to be listening to this presentation, or if maybe you're a ground student who goes back home to complete any field experiences, you may also have to get additional clearances in order to go into the school sites in any other state. So this leads us into our next topic, which is expectations. So what is expected of you in regards to practicum and field experiences while you're a GCU student? Really, no matter what program you're in, if it's a College of Education program, you are all held to our academic standards and conduct expectations for observing and practicing in the field. So for the sake of time, we're not going to dive into these in depth, but please do know that those conduct expectations are located in the University Policy Handbook, as well as our field experience and student teaching handbooks. So you will be expected to know and be familiar with the clinical practice conduct expectation and academic standards. So please do, whenever you have a moment, make sure you review those within the appropriate manual. All of our education candidates are also held to our standards for professionalism. These are our professional dispositions. You see there on the screen, there's 10 of them. Again, these are located in the University Policy Handbook, as well as our field experience and student teaching manuals. And these are really those standards, again, around professionalism and ethics. You know, things like, are you committed to the profession? Are you showing respect to others? Are you communicating appropriately and positively? These professional dispositions will be embedded throughout your coursework, so you should become familiar with them. And then these are going to be what you're first evaluated on as you transition into that final phase, that student teaching. You are evaluated on those professional dispositions. We also have adopted the Model Code of Ethics, and this is a national set of ethics that have been put forth by the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification. So you'll see here that they follow 5 primary principles: the responsibility to the profession, your professional competence, responsibility to the students as well as the school community, and last but not least, the responsible and ethical use of technology. So these really are those national standards that educators are expected to abide by and adhere to. As you know, education and the teaching profession, we're all really held to that high standard and should be you know, abiding by these professional and ethical guidelines at all times. One I want to point out is that number 5, the responsible and ethical use of technology. Just with social media being as prevalent as it is, and then also on top of the current state of affairs and all of the increase in virtual instruction, we want to make sure that you're adhering to the ethical standards around that use of technology. So it's just going to be important to review what that looks like and what's appropriate in terms of ethics when you're working with the students in the classrooms. So again, you can just, unfortunately, you won't be able to click on the hyperlink if you're just viewing the recorded version of this Explore More. However, if you Google Model Code of Ethics for Educators, it would be the first thing that pops up, and then you can go directly to their website to have more information available to you. But simply speaking, you know, you want to make sure that you're making the appropriate decisions around things like making any profiles private. You're not friending any students. You know, you never want to cross that line between being the professional and you know, a friend of your students. Okay, so each of your courses that require practicum will have a prescribed number of required practicum hours. This could be anywhere between 5 to 30 hours per course. Some of our courses even have up to 60 hours, such as our early childhood special education program. They have 2 60-hour practicums. Just one thing to keep in mind, that these are the minimum required hours required to complete for the course. However, you can certainly do more, and we actually highly encourage that you do more. Just think, like most things in life, the more you do it, the better you're going to be at it. So the more times that you're out there in the field, the more hours that you're working in those classrooms and with the students, the better prepared you're going to be when you do have a classroom of your own. This next slide or two just has some examples of dress. One of the most common questions we get is, what do I wear? So you want to make sure that you, of course, are adhering to any policies that your placement site has. So the school that you're going into, that's what you want to always make sure that you're reviewing their policies around dress, around rules, around behavior, and then certainly adhering to those. Each district or school site, they'll each have their preferred policies around dress, of course. In some cases, teachers may be able to dress down a bit more than others. But one thing you want to keep in mind as a student is that those teachers already have the job. You want the job. So you'll want to be sure to be professional in every sense of the matter, you know, with your attitude, of course, with your dress. You want to make sure that you're impressing those administrators who may have their eye on you for any potential future employment. So you'll see here on this first slide, just some examples of acceptable dress. You know, button-down shirts, you want to make sure your clothes are ironed, nothing too short or revealing. And then on the next page here, we just have some examples of the opposite of that unacceptable dress. You know, you want to refrain from wearing jeans or ripped or dirty clothing. Of course, you don't want to wear anything too casual or revealing. Now, there may be certain spirit days that you're attending or casual days at the school site. Just make sure that you're communicating with the placement site or the mentor teacher that you're working with, and you're understanding their expectations and adhering to those. On the next several slides, we'll discuss the practicum placement options. So you might be thinking, okay, I have a class that requires practicum coming up. What do I do? The three main ways in which placements occur for those that are ground or are traditional students, or if you're located in the state of Arizona, you'll see those three things here on the slide. So you can self-place, you can submit a practicum placement request, or you may have a faculty-led placement. And we'll break each of those down here on the next several slides. So let's start off with self-placement. What does that mean? So this essentially means that you as a student have decided that you are going to reach out to a district or a school site yourself, and you are going to be in communication with them and essentially place yourself into one of those school sites for practicum. So this is the main way students that are located outside of Arizona will arrange their placements. However, for those, again, that are in Arizona, many of the public districts here in Arizona, they would prefer not to be contacted by the student, but to be contacted by GCU specifically. So here in Arizona, most of the districts won't allow you to contact them. They'll want to hear from GCU. However, there are a few districts that are okay with that, and private or charter schools are typically okay with you, the individual student, reaching out and communicating, I'm a GCU student, I have this many practicum hours I need to fulfill for this semester in this type of setting. Who would be the most appropriate person to talk to, or would it be okay if I arrange that with you? Of course, once you establish a connection with the school site, if you're self-placing, you always want to make sure that you're following up with them and you're thanking them for their time. You know, they don't have to open up their school site to you, but they're doing that out of the kindness of their heart. They know what it takes to become a educator. They want to be able to provide those experiences and those mentorships to you. So just make sure that you are certainly thanking them for allowing you to come into their school and complete your learning there. Now, if you are an online student that's located in Arizona, you want to make sure that you are reaching out to your field experience counselor, and they can provide you with some self-placement options. For our traditional ground students located again here in Arizona, you will submit a practicum placement request indicating that you would like to self-place. That goes into your field experience counselor, just so that they understand that they don't have to confirm or work a placement for you. one thing to keep in mind is that if you have less than 10 hours of practicum in a given semester, we will want you to self-place into, a private or a charter school or a public school that would allow for that self-placement process. Again, if you have any questions on the particular process that you follow, make sure that you're reaching out to your field experience counselor and he or she can walk you through it. If you do approach a school or a district and they inform you that they need something in writing from GCU, maybe they don't need to speak with anyone, but they would like something in writing from GCU, just verifying that you are indeed a GCU student, go ahead and reach out to your field experience counselor, and he or she can provide you a letter like this one I have on the screen that just details that, who we are as GCU, who you are as as a GCU student, what course that you have coming up that requires practicum, et cetera, and then you can provide that to the school as needed. Okay, let's head into the second way in which you may be placed for practicum. And this is going, again, to be very specific to our Arizona located candidates only. And that is a practicum placement request. So like I had mentioned, most Arizona districts prefer that GCU contacts them directly rather than having a number of individual students reach out to them. So for this reason, both our ground as well as our online students that are located here in Arizona can request practicum placement through GCU. So our ground students, again, you'll fill out a practicum placement request form. This time you won't indicate that you're going to self-place. You will indicate where you would like to be placed. And then our field experience counselors will work alongside our placement counselors in order to secure that placement for you. Keep in mind, every district, every school has their own policies and procedures around placement. Some of them will take a little bit longer than others. So you just want to make sure that you are meeting any deadlines for your placement request and you're allowing our practicum coordinator and placement team to have enough time to try to confirm those placements for you. So for the deadline for our ground students, you want to complete the practicum placement form prior to each practicum course. And you can do so by going into your student portal at myportal.gcu.edu. You go to the My Documents section, you select the e-sign documents, and then you click on the click here to access all documents pending e-signature, and you'll see that practicum placement request form. Again, same deadline for our non-traditional students. You want to get that in before the course would begin. The process will be a little bit different for our online students. You'll just want to make sure that you're contacting your assigned field experience counselor and having that discussion with them regarding the practicum placement request. Here on this next slide are just some important reminders around this type of request, the practicum placement request. Again, just keep in mind that each district will have their own protocols around placement. I know sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating to students if they haven't heard back, but we are at the mercies of hearing back from the schools and the districts, and we always know that their first priority is to their school site, the classroom, the students, the staff there. But they will always eventually follow up with this, but it might just take a little bit longer, to hear back from others, some than others. But as soon as we get any information, our practicum coordinator will reach out to you and provide you with the placement information once it's been confirmed. Now that said, Once a placement is confirmed, we do expect that you honor the commitment and you're setting up the time to come into those classrooms with the mentor teacher and complete those hours. You know, not adhering to a confirmed practicum placement or you're no showing to a site. It really does not align with those professional dispositions, and it could just result in some, you know, us having to do some additional coaching or disciplinary action. We really do want you to commit to these placements and make sure that you're arranging time to come in and following up and completing those hours. Of course, again, if you do have any questions regarding the placement request process, always make sure you're directing those to your field experience counselor. You can also reach out to the general practicum inbox, which is practicuminquiries@gcu.edu. The last thing we just wanted to mention regarding the practicum placement request is that sometimes schools or districts will ask for additional requirements. So this is really depending on the school or the district, or sometimes the program of study in which you're involved. For instance, all of our Arizona early childhood students, you have to have not only your fingerprint clearance on file, but you also have to have a current negative TB test. This is a Department of Health regulation, so we certainly must abide by that. Some districts may also require additional paperwork, such as resumes or driver's license, maybe even copies of letters of recommendation. So we will always let you know if, when we are securing a placement, the school site requests any additional information. We will request that you provide that. Then finally, number 3, the last way in which you could be placed for practicum is through your course faculty member. So again, this would really be standard to those students here on our traditional ground campus. Several of our ground faculty members have established partnerships with local schools and districts. And then in this case, your faculty member will let you know where the practicum will be held and provide you with all the details of that information. So again, they might have set up or established a relationship with a particular school site or particular mentors in the field, and they will have you go to those individual sites. But they will let you know as soon as you're enrolled into the class. They have everything organized for you. Okay, as I mentioned earlier on, you will each need to be sure that you're documenting and submitting your completed practicum or field experience hours. So it's important to be sure that you're completing all of the necessary steps to document those hours in order for them to be here in our system. So all of our College of Education students do document their completed hours on what we refer to as the Clinical Field Experience Verification Form. You can see a screenshot of what one looks like here on the right-hand side. These forms are electronic, so you will be completing them electronically through your student portal. There is a document management or DMS portion of your student portal. You'll be able to click into that and then complete these documents. So essentially, you'll document the time, the dates, the activities that you've completed within the classroom, the facility or the school site in which you completed it. And then that form is loaded into your student portal. If your class requires a mentor signature, and you'll know because it will ask you in your student portal. Again, there's a few classes that don't require that fingerprint clearance. Those ones will not require mentor signature, but the bulk of your courses are going to require that you're going into a classroom, working with a mentor teacher. In that case, they will need to sign off on your clinical field experience verification form. So you will indicate their school email address on the form. This then will automatically be sent to their email address in order to sign off on. And then once they have done so, that then goes back into your student portal. You will be able to download it from there in order to place into your LoudCloud Classroom and share with your course instructor. Now, keep in mind that the clinical field experience verification form, that does need to be submitted to your course by the end of your class. So you want to make sure that you give your mentor teacher a heads up at the beginning that you have this many hours to complete. You decide on and you work on a schedule with when you're going to complete those with the mentor, and then also just let them know that they will be requested to sign off on those hours once you've completed that. So they'll want to keep an eye out in their email, and you want to give them a little bit of time. Make sure that you're sending that out in order to get uploaded to your LoudCloud course prior to the course end date. There are points tied to this form in just about every class. So if you do not submit the form, you're going to lose out on those points. Also, you will be required to make up those hours, as you are required to complete all hours required for your particular program of study prior to going into student teaching. There is a helpful step-by-step guide on how you document your hours. That is located on our Student Success Center. So I know we're not going through the process step-by-step right now. It's a pretty easy process where you just click into the portal, you complete the form. Again, that goes to your mentor teacher. Once he or she completes it, it goes back to your student portal, and that's where you can pull it from. However, if you'd like to see a complete step-by-step guide, you can access that on the Student Success Center. And here we have, this is what your student portal would look like. You click on the document management app. We do have that step-by-step guide hyperlinked here, but for those of you listening to the recorded version, unfortunately, you'll be just viewing my screen, so you won't be able to access that hyperlink, but please know it is available on the Student Success Center. Okay, one thing I want you to keep in mind as you go through your program is that it is very important that you're submitting accurate and completed documentation of your hours. In order to be recommended for certification, we here at GCU need to ensure that you're completing all programmatic requirements. That's not just your coursework, but also those embedded practicum field experience hours. So let's say if your program requires 100 hours of practicum, you will want to make sure that you're tracking and documenting and you're completing all 100 hours prior to student teaching. If the hours are not completed, not only can it result in that deduction of points, but it also results in an ill preparedness and an ineligibility for student teaching. So just some additional points here about your practicum hours. They must be completed within the course time frame. So make sure as soon as you have access to the course, you're going through that syllabus in good detail, you're planning out what will be needed for those hours, how many hours are required, the setting that they're required in, and then you're working to complete those hours within the course time frame. You can't utilize hours or experiences from dates prior to or after the course. The only time that you would be using hours after the course is if you did not complete them and you need to make up those hours in order to meet that programmatic requirement. Also, they are mutually exclusive. So what does that mean? That means you can't double dip. So you cannot use hours from one course for another course. Or if you have two courses scheduled at the same time or even more, and let's say each have 5 hours, you would have to complete 5 hours for each of those courses scheduled. And then finally, just a quick reminder here that the college does audit practicum hours. So it's just important to make sure that you're accurate and truthful in that documentation. Again, that aligns with those professional dispositions. We don't want you to just haphazardly make up hours. We do audit those. And then if we do find that you have submitted any falsified information, that is something that we send over to our code of conduct for review and potential disciplinary actions would occur. So we won't spend much time on that because I know that you will all understand the importance of these hours and make sure that you're getting in the classrooms in order to complete them. Okay, here you will see a screenshot of our Student Success Center. And for those that may not yet be familiar with the Student Success Center, this is a part of our university website where each college can house their various resources. So this is just a quick screenshot of our College of Education's Student Success Center. This is a website that we update on a pretty regular basis, I would say about once a month. So I do encourage that you bookmark the Student Success Center and you come back to it often so you're able to access the most up-to-date resources. You'll see here on the left side of the screen, on the Student Success Center, we have many different categories of content. We have a practicum field experience section, which will house all of the necessary documents and resources for practicum. So we do have our field experience handbook there. We have a tip sheet, which will help you out with how to set up the practicum. We have a fact sheet that lists every single course that has practicum, the amount of hours required, and the required setting. So that practicum field experience fact sheet is a good tool to use as you're going through your program and kind of looking ahead to what will be needed and where you'll need to complete those hours once those courses roll around. So again, I just encourage you to make sure that you visit the Student Success Center. You take some time to look through all of the resources available to you, as they certainly will be helpful as you progress through your program. Okay, again, for those of you here in Arizona, I wanted to make sure I added a slide for our Loeb Sleep to Teach and Lead event. This is an event that we hold here on campus each semester. And we invite districts and school sites from across Arizona to come and connect with our students. Certainly those of you that may be nearing the end of your program, they were looking to hire you on for potential employment, but we also let the districts and school sites know that we invite all of our candidates, even those earlier on in our program, in order to connect with them for potential practicum or field experience or student teaching placement. It's also a great event to come to just practice speaking with professionals in your field. So just be on the lookout for more information regarding these events each semester. Okay, finally, I wanted to be sure to leave you with some of my top tips around practicum and field experience. And I also have grabbed some of the quotes or testimonials from prior students regarding practicum. Just make sure that you are working with your field experience counselor and you're understanding what is needed for fingerprint clearance as soon as possible. You want to make sure that you get that clearance on file as soon as possible so you're not held up into going into any of these practicum courses. It is one thing that we certainly don't make any exceptions on is that you can't go into a course that requires fingerprint clearance if you do not have it on file. Second thing here is, again, remember the classes indicate the minimum required amount of hours. This is the minimum, but we again encourage you to do more. You'll see here again on the side some direct quotes from recent graduates. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. Remember, many of these schools and districts will have their eye on you for potential employment. I know particularly here in Arizona, we have a large teacher shortage going on, and these schools are very hungry to get you into their classrooms and hire you on. So make sure that you're utilizing any time that you're spending out there in the field for your practicum very wisely. You're making good first impressions and that you are remaining professional and polite. That said, we also want you to be mindful that you're still a student. You're still very much in the learning phase of things. So make sure you're also using this time to ask questions, request their feedback, and take that feedback as a helpful roadmap and think about how you might use it in order to improve your teaching practice. So always, always, always be open to feedback. Then the next one here, again, is just make sure that you're cleaning up that social media. School administrators, teachers, students, families, they want to know who's in their classrooms, and they will look you up. So remember that we as educators are held to higher standards, and you don't want to find yourself in an uncomfortable or awkward situation where you're having to explain away something someone found online. Again, visit the SSC or that Student Success Center often for the most up-to-date resources. Bookmark it, come back to it. We went to make sure that we're supporting you, and we tried our best to do so by providing you with meaningful resources that will help you as you progress through the program. Another thing here is you'll want to familiarize yourself with those professional dispositions, the conduct expectation, and the model code of ethics. Now, this is a given here. We expect that you're leading by example. Our conceptual framework here in the College of Ed is based on learning, leading, and serving. So that leading one is a big one. You're leading by example out there in the field, and you're representing not only yourself, but GCU well. And last but not least, make sure you're having some fun. Don't forget that the reason that you came into this degree program is, I'm sure you have multiple different reasons, but at the end of the day is that you want to support those K-12 students out there in the classroom. So remember that good teachers do that. They have fun. And you can help your students have fun as well as, you enjoy these types of experiences and opportunities. I also wanted to take just a quick moment to share with you our social media sites. These are great things to subscribe to in order to keep up to date with not only things that are happening here at GCU and within the College of Education, but in the general education field. So first, we have our Teaching in Purple. This is a blog that is updated frequently and just has a lot of great information about different education topics. We, of course, have a COE Twitter and Instagram account. We have our Lopes Teach Up initiative, which is really all about elevating the teaching profession. And last but not least, we have the Top of the Class podcast. So again, unfortunately, for those of you just listening to the recording, you won't be able to click on these hyperlinks. However, if you are interested in subscribing and connecting with us through our social media, go ahead and reach out to your counselors, and they can make sure that you have that information handy. So with that, we will wrap it up. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy day to attend our overview of practicum field experience requirements. I hope that this information was informative and helpful for you. I know it was just a little blip into practicum, and I'm sure you're going to have questions along the way. So please do feel free to reach out to your field experience counselor, or you can always contact us directly here at coe.clinicalpractice@gcu.edu. So thank you again so much, and good luck as you enter into your practicum courses. Have a great rest of your day.